So a while back, I made a video about the cost of starting a supplement company, and we covered a lot of ground, but, and it's a big one, the video assumed a stock formula situation, whereas many of you watching this are thinking instead of launching a custom formula. Well, in this day and age, having a unique value proposition, which likely includes a unique formula, is extremely important, especially if you want to compete on digital platforms like Amazon. However, a custom formula does come with its own price tag, so today I want to dive into what costs could look like for a custom formula situation and reveal the potential hidden costs that aren't usually considered in the budget for those new to the space. And at the end of the video, I'll reveal what I feel is possibly a more realistic investment number for those starting out so that you can properly budget, establish the right retail price, and determine if now is the right time for you to launch, or perhaps you may realize that you're going to need some more time to save up that additional investment cash. Now, a quick word from our sponsor, Chubby Gorilla. Chubby Gorilla's mission is to engineer for our purpose. Every product we create is custom designed, purpose-built packaging, never an off-the-shelf solution. We understand our customers have many options, which is why we take every aspect of our mission seriously, from meeting industry regulations to enhancing consumer experiences and optimizing business workflows. When you choose one of our containers, tubes, or bottles, we aim to deliver a truly unique and unmatched experience. Give your company a unique packaging experience and request a sample kit today. So if this is your first time here, my name is Brian and it's great to meet you. I've been in the supplement space for over 2 decades now, helping supplement brands grow by navigating FDA and FTC requirements, and I can help you do the same. And if you want to work together, please check out the links in the description down below. Now, there are some clear advantages with custom formulas over stock formulas beyond obviously having a unique formulation. For example, you have way better control of your inventory. You can have very unique packaging for your product to stand out. You can even dictate specific ingredients your manufacturers must use. And you also have direct lines of communication with the manufacturer, in particular when having to resolve quality or operational issues. Now, in terms of costs, you're definitely going to have to pay for these advantages, like finding a reputable, reliable, and trusted contract manufacturer. And well, they're going to have higher minimum order quantities, otherwise known as MOQs. I'm sure that many of you that are watching may have come across some manufacturers that you found online offering much lower MOQs, and maybe you're wondering, like, what's the catch? While one could find a high quality, reputable manufacturer that offers really low MOQs, in my experience, low MOQ suppliers aren't generally what I consider the higher caliber of manufacturers. You have to remember, lower MOQ suppliers are great at being found online. They're great at selling you on their service, but they tend to lack the appropriate processes and testing in place to properly and thoroughly catch FDA compliance requirements, or they do the bare minimums to squeak by, which only increases the risk and liability for you. I remember this one time I came across a brand led by a doctor who wanted to use a facility that didn't have third-party CGMP certification. And now, while FDA doesn't technically require third-party certification, I'm sorry, but for me, that is a deal breaker. I've seen too many horror stories in this space, and to me, having a third-party GMP certification is a minimum pay-to-play requirement. Otherwise, it's just too easy for the CEO to tell their QA department to ease up on the rules. And if you think that can't happen, well, think of Boeing. On top of it, some manufacturing facilities are just poorly designed. They might have weak ventilation and airflow systems that could increase the potential for cross-contamination, or maybe they don't have appropriate humidity or temperature controls. Some manufacturers test the ingredients fairly infrequently, if at all. And by the way, you can check out this video here where I go into some of the manufacturing issues FDA has identified within contract manufacturers. So back to the topic at hand, let's say a formula is quoted to be $5 a bottle for a 60 capsule product. The minimum order quantity here is 5,000 units. So right off the bat, you're gonna have to spend $25,000 in inventory alone, plus another $2 to $3K for third-party testing per order. Now, of course, in this example, I've assumed 5,000 units as the minimum order quantity, but there are some good manufacturers that have lower MOQs, such as 2,500 units. But the MOQ still varies, and it depends on the manufacturer, depends on the ingredients, depends on the dosage form, maybe depends on the finished packaging format, which can all drive up the MOQ. Hopefully you're enjoying this video, and really quick, if you are interested in starting a supplement brand and you want to understand how to navigate the FDA and FTC requirements of all of it, help you find a manufacturer, you can actually work with us directly. Links in the description down below. Back to the video. So it's definitely a good chunk of change here, but there are other costs. There are fees everywhere, from the payment processor to Shopify to exchange rates to Amazon. So for example, let's just say you're using Squarespace to host your website and someone buys your product. Well, you're paying Squarespace a fee for that transaction, but then you're also paying a payment processor a fee for that same transaction. And this assumes that things are working fine and that your supplement is not in this high-risk category, which, by the way, it's another reason why compliance is so important. Even in that R&D phase of things, we do encourage brands to work with us as early as possible before any commitments are made, because even something as simple as a claim being put on your product or on your website could flag your product as high risk, and as a result, the typical payment processors will not want to work with you. And now you're scrambling to find another payment processor. Guess what? Those fees are even higher. The next one is overhead costs. Now, before you think that this doesn't apply to you because you're using a fulfillment center or Amazon FBA, I'm going to challenge you a little bit, and I want you to imagine where you are going to be once your brand is successful. So sure, today maybe you're just a company of one or maybe three where you're doing everything from home, right? But as your business grows, you're going to need employees. You're likely going to look at third-party logistics providers. You're likely going to need an office, and you're probably going to have utility costs tied to them, and you're probably going to need a bookkeeper to keep track of everything. And so the point I'm trying to make is that sure, maybe your operation is small and profitable right now, but is it going to be when you're bigger, when you have more expenses? And that's the kicker. You'll want to price your product in a way so that it absorbs these future costs. And speaking of future costs, don't forget that you need to replenish inventory. So that margin that you're making, not all of that goes back to you. A good chunk of that has to go back into the business so they can buy more inventory than the previous order. So moving on, let's talk about taxes and debt really quickly. Now, for those of you that are fairly new to this space, that are fairly new to business, many believe that the retail selling price minus the cost of goods is your profit. Well, the reality is that that's not the case. Profit isn't that simple. We've already talked about some of the operational costs that could eat into that profit. But another factor that would eat into that profit is taxes. Now, for me, I have a separate account that's designated for taxes, and I just draw a fixed percentage out of every sale and I put it into my tax bank account. And it's also important that it's in another account, preferably another bank that isn't associated with my day-to-day operating bank account, so that I just never see it, never touch it, don't even know about it until I need it. The other thing is debt. Now, my personal approach is to avoid debt at all costs, except, for a mortgage, especially if you want to start a business, though, especially if this is your first foray into entrepreneurship. But I get it. The reality is that in some cases, brands are operating on debt. Owners are taking out a HELOC, maybe they're getting a loan, and with that comes a variable or high interest rate. So you have to remember to factor that into your numbers. Okay, let's keep going. Now, I can't skip this topic, and that's marketing. So clearly, this is very, very, very important. You can have a great product, but without the marketing, without getting the eyeballs, the business is essentially dead in the water. And there are a few ways you can do this, and I know my marketing colleagues will have way more to say about this, but I see three big avenues. One is you can do the marketing yourself. You can create content, you can grow your followers organically, you can see what's working or not working, but it takes time, a lot of time. Which brings us to approach number two, and that is you can accelerate things with ads. But when I say things, I don't mean sales, right? Ads, at least in my opinion, at this early stage of the game is all about determining if your messaging, your value proposition, your brand, your product is resonating with the consumers or not. Ads help you accelerate this process of verifying whether the consumers are even interested in what you have to offer. Whether that's following your content, maybe signing up on your email list, or even just clicking on your offers. Which brings us to our third approach, and that is you can hire services that will do this for you. But beware, this can be very expensive with no guarantees of success, and in my opinion, doesn't mean you can just wipe your hands free of any responsibility with regards to marketing. First, there's still an FDA and FTC aspect of compliance that your marketing needs to comply with, and sometimes these services don't factor that in. And second, you are always going to be an integral piece of understanding how marketing is working for your business. It's important that you know what's working and what's not. And let's be real, the last thing you want to be is so dependent on your marketing agency that you can never leave them. In terms of marketing levers that you can pull, there's a multitude of options from influencers, podcasts, boosted posts to product review sites. The big message here is that this is going to cost you money, right? And generally, I would say half your budget is going to go into marketing alone. One other cost that is typically ignored is time and stress. And to that, finding a good manufacturer, let alone good contract manufacturers that won't ignore you, that will reply on time, that will follow through on what they say that they will do, is hard to come by and can take a defeating amount of time and energy to find the right partner. Where essentially brands I've seen end up using a mediocre or poor manufacturer simply because they had no other options. Now, let me ask you this. Would you expect Gerber baby formula to have spent the time to find a best-in-class manufacturer, or would you rather them just settle with whatever manufacturer that they happen to get a reply from? The cost of time also sneaks up in other ways, dealing with customer complaints, maybe product returns, products held by FDA, Amazon delistings, QC testing issues, maybe Google ads are shutting you down due to non-compliant claims, right? Resolving these issues and the lost sales opportunities are definitely going to cost you. And this is where we do help our brands. We help them save time finding a manufacturer and mitigating the likelihood of product issues occurring. Look, things are going to happen. Hiccups, snafus, QC, compliance issues, they are going to occur. It's the nature of the business. But we can at least bring down the likelihood of that as well as minimize the impact so that you can get back on track as swiftly as possible. So where exactly does this bring us in terms of upfront costs to start a supplement company? Well, there are certain assumptions here. For example, I'm assuming we're dealing with a single custom formula, a solid dosage form like a capsule, tablet, or powder, a formula with 3 to 5 ingredients in a standard bottle. So I would roughly estimate starting costs to be in that $25,000 to $50,000 range at least to give the business enough fuel it needs to give it a real shot of success. Now, I know many of you probably feel otherwise, or maybe you think that I'm trying to kill dreams of having a supplement brand. But like I said, this is a very, very rough estimate. So don't hold me to this. And the big message here is that I want you to avoid the nightmare of a failed business. And one way to do that is to properly cost out your startup before you put any real money down, before you've made any commitments or put down a deposit with a manufacturer, which is why we do encourage clients to work with us early in the concept phase of the business, regardless of whether it's a simple stock formula or a complex, unique formulation. And you can find links in the description down below to work with us directly. And in the meantime, be sure to watch these other videos here, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.